2600 BC, the first physician. 500 BC, veins are distinguished from arteries. 1489, Da Vinci learns about human anatomy. 1590, the microscope is invented. 1796, the first vaccine is created. 1857, germs are discovered as a cause of disease. 1899, aspirin is created. The 20th century, the Band-Aid, the first flu vaccine, the first heart transplant is performed, and the first mammal is cloned. 2018 AD. Healthcare advancements are as efficient as ever, but as technologies progress, it begins to become more and more integrated into healthcare. So the question is, how does technology affect the healthcare field? Hello, my name is Carson Kane, and I'm going to help you to understand how technologies are affecting the healthcare field. Along the way, account executive Zola McNaughton will help us to understand these technologies from a development side.
My name is Zola McNaughton. I am an account executive for Cloudera, a big data company headquartered out of Silicon Valley. And our company is basically based on the Hadoop technology. Very exciting.
As well as this, Nurse Julie Glatz will help us to understand these technologies from an inside perspective and show us what it would actually be like to work with these technologies.
My name is Julie Glatz. I am a nurse practitioner at Dublin Methodist Hospital, which is part of Ohio Health. As a nurse practitioner, I am responsible for surgery patients that come in either to have elective surgery, which means they're choosing to have surgery, or they have emergency surgery for whatever reason. So at the hospital, I take care of patients prior to surgery, help get them ready for surgery, and then also take care of them after surgery upon discharge to get them ready to go home as well.
One of the first technologies we're going to be talking about is the electronic health record. This technology is completely changing the way we use and organize patient information, and is affecting both doctors and patients alike. Today, technology has been integrated into our everyday life. Many activities that were once performed by humans are now being performed by robots and other technology. Instead of writing a letter, you write an email. Instead of writing down a customer's orders for food, you bring it up using an ordering system. Instead of working on an assembly line, performing the same task over and over again, a robotic arm completes that task for you. Whether you like it or not, our world is changing, and everyone must adapt. Just a few decades ago, the healthcare field was a relatively old-fashioned system. While technology was available, it remained the same due to the familiarity of outdated systems. If the system were to change drastically, it might have been more difficult for doctors to adapt and become more comfortable with the new system. If doctors are not comfortable, then it can make the patient treatment harder. But today, the healthcare industry has made a large change to adapt electronic medical records. Back in the 50s, there was no standardized method of recording and monitoring patient information. Doctors would just write their undecipherable notes. This is when the revolutionary way to organize this kind of data was created. This was called the Problem-Oriented Medical Record, or POMR for short. This was a huge advancement in the healthcare field. The POMR includes about 5 basic components, and several of which are still used today. These components include the history database, the complete problems list of the patient, initial plans for the patient, the daily progress note, and the final progress note, or the discharge summary. This allowed for a great way to organize all patient information and paved the way for more modern revolutionary databases. While many healthcare facilities like hospitals and doctors' offices use both electronic medical records and paper-based information, at this time, electronic medical records were not available. Before electronic medical records, all types of health information were stored on file in each doctor's office, practitioner's office, and healthcare facility. This system was familiar to doctors, but it was a relatively inefficient way to organize patient data. Every time you would go to the doctor's office, the doctor or someone from the office would go back to the filing room and obtain your file. This filing room would take up an extremely large amount of space because the office would have to hold every single patient's file. This means that in these rooms there would have to be shelves, cabinets, and drawers in order to properly organize these files. These files were usually organized either alphabetically or numerically. The most popular option is the numerical system. If the file system was alphabetical, the doctor would have to find your name in accordance to the organization. For instance, if your name was John Smith, you might be organized in the S section of the filing room. The other type of organization is numerical. There are several numerical systems, but some examples include consecutive filing and terminal digit filing. For consecutive filing, medical records were filed chronologically by their patient number, so each patient number would gradually go up in chronological order. Terminal digit filing, which is also known as the reverse numeric filing system, stores medical records in reverse. So instead of going up chronologically and increasing by the last number, the number will increase by the first number, in reverse order. This allows the doctor, or an authorized employee, to access the medical record they need. However, this means that only doctors and authorized employees should be able to access the filing room. In 1996, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, was passed and signed into law by President Bill Clinton. While this was a big deal back in 1996, it has a greater relevance now than it ever did due to the creation of modern healthcare technologies. This act has many purposes, but the one most relevant to healthcare information is the HIPAA privacy rule. This rule sets national standards in place to protect patient health information, or PHI. This means that healthcare facilities must have proper protection of these filing systems, so no random passerby can walk into these filing rooms and steal your healthcare information. These paper-based filing systems worked fine, but there are several disadvantages to this type of organization. While paper-based filing systems are much more inexpensive upfront, the overall cost is much more expensive and it's much harder to store information. However, as data technologies advance, many healthcare facilities are converting to a data organization system called electronic medical records. There are two main medical records that are used regularly, but the one that is used in each healthcare facility with electronic-based patient information is the electronic medical record, or EMR. Electronic medical records serve the same purpose as the old filing system, but with greater advantages.
I absolutely think that technology is vital for any hospital system or really any healthcare system. When I started in healthcare over 20 years ago, everything was paper. So anything that I did was paper, orders were paper, progress notes were paper, and if those papers got lost, it was really hard to find anything. I think the continuity of care that you're able to provide to the patient now with modern technology is much improved.
With many information databases comes the ease of storing information. With paper-based filing systems, it is much harder to store data. For each new piece of information comes a new piece of paper. If you are storing all of your patient's information, this requires an extremely large amount of space. But with electronic medical records, it is easy to store and pull information from your database. Electronic medical records are defined as the digital version of a patient's chart. This means that all information of the filing system can be found digitally, but are stored in a smaller amount of space. Different healthcare facilities and care delivery organizations use different options for storing medical records, but usually they are stored in either local servers or private clouds. Private clouds mean that the information is stored in a different location than the healthcare facility, but can only be accessed by the healthcare facility. This allows for your patient healthcare information to be stored safely. The other type of health record that is used frequently is the electronic health record, or EHR. Unlike the electronic medical record, the EHR falls under something called the Health Information Exchange. The Health Information Exchange, or HIE, is the agreement between healthcare facilities nationwide with EHR technologies to share patient healthcare information. For example, let's say you went to take a trip to the mountains. Now you're living in a mountaintop house hundreds of feet above the ground, and you trip and fall down the mountain. You are then rushed to the nearest hospital, and doctors need to evaluate your health quickly and see what your blood type is, and if you have any medical requirements. Would it be easier to call your practitioner's office, or to have a vast medical history about your health information readily available in an online database?
The difference between electronic medical records and electronic health records, we now have a system that a lot of hospital systems use called Epic. And Epic is a system that is basically what is called Care Everywhere. So the electronic medical record is maybe what you use at your specific facility. So at Dublin Methodist Hospital, I use in the patient's EMR, but the electronic health record can be accessed from any place. So as an example, I take care of patients in the hospital, but I also work in a physician's office. So I'm not necessarily in that EMR. I'm using the electronic health record to access information from the EMR in the hospital. So it makes it very nice, and it's actually much more accessible than when I initially started healthcare. If you couldn't find the chart, the paper chart, you couldn't find out about the patient. And a lot of times the chart was with the physician or with the patient or with a nurse, and if I needed information, it was very hard to find it. And now it's logging onto the computer and all the information is loaded right in the electronic medical record, or you can access it through an electronic health record, really wherever you are, which makes it really nice.
The EHR focuses on the total health of the patient. This means that it stores the full medical history for each patient so doctors can make the best evaluations possible. The EHR also reduces the repetition of medical tests that the patient has already taken, because all healthcare facilities with EHRs record the tests that the patient has already taken in their facility. It also goes beyond the standard clinical data provided by EMRs, which brings a more broader view of the patient's health. Even some national legislation has passed to promote the adoption of the electronic health record. In 2009, President Obama signed something called the High-Tech Act, which promoted the adoption of the EHR. However, there are some common misconceptions about the differences between electronic health records and electronic medical records. Many people, including those in the healthcare field, use the terms EHR and EMR interchangeably, even though these terms are very different and describe two different types of medical records. EHRs are the nationwide health record that can be accessed in multiple facilities and are maintained by multiple facilities. EMRs are all different and maintained by individual healthcare facilities or companies.
Another huge technology that is affecting the healthcare field is big data technologies. Big data technologies are not only revolutionizing the healthcare facilities, but are also revolutionizing businesses and operation as well. They can allow businesses and operations in healthcare facilities to do an almost infinite amount of tasks. And although big data hasn't been properly implemented yet, it will be a huge tool nationwide in the next few years.
In the last 2 years, we have generated 90% of all data that has ever been stored in all of history. You might be thinking how this is possible, but if you think about the technology we are constantly using, you begin to grasp the depth of the generated data. For every minute that goes by, YouTube users watch 4.1 million videos, Google delivers results for 3.6 million searches, and Wikipedia publishes 600 new edits. Each one of these online processes are sent to the cloud and servers to add to the already vast amount of data in the world. This is why there is so much data in the world today. Modern technologies have enabled people to do more and more activities that use data. So how do we keep track of it all, and how can this data be stored? Well, this kind of data is usually given the term big data. The term big data is used to describe a large volume of data, which can include the patient data of EHRs and EMRs. Most people question why you would ever want to store so much of this seemingly useless information, but actually, data is turning into a crucial and valuable resource. This new resource is used in many ways. As the years go by, more and more data storage becomes available, and more ways to use data is being created. Every daily observation, school science experiment, and idea you write down is data, and it can be stored. Big data is becoming revolutionary because it allows anyone to track trends and discover patterns from a large amount of data. And these uses can affect the world and the healthcare field. Firstly, it can be used to understand target customers for businesses and corporations. This is one of the most popular uses of data. They can understand their customers' behaviors and preferences to gather what they might buy and what they might have the potential to buy. This has been a huge tool for businesses in the last decade and will continue to be useful. Next, although big data is a useful tool in healthcare right now, big data is not being properly utilized yet. But as data technologies progress, we should see big data being used. The reason big data has not been implemented yet is because several barriers exist that can affect the usefulness of this new tool. The first barrier is the security barrier. Due to HIPAA requirements, all data has to have ensured safety because healthcare providers can receive a penalty for security breaches. Although big data is a useful tool, at this day and age, there aren't enough tools to protect patient data, and few big data companies have well-supported secure data environments. The company Cloudera is one example of this kind of company, and they use the data environment of Hadoop. Another barrier that can hold back healthcare facilities from implementing big data is the expertise required. Right now, data scientists are widely in need and are in huge demand across the country, And in the healthcare setting, it can be hard to find someone to manipulate and organize this data, unless you use data environments like Impala that allow the use of SQL or structured query language in a database.
So healthcare organizations used to write everything in, by hand in a paper note. With the Accountable Care Act, there is now a requirement to prove very quickly that you are providing the good quality of care to the patient. In order to do so, all healthcare organizations are having to go to electronic health records, and they're having to race to that very quickly. And so the electronic health record basically dictates to the providers how they interact with their patient through data. And you'll have, MRN, a place for uploading their, MRN, their driver's license number, their name, date of birth. You can probably have a place that you can, as a nurse, type in what is their temperature, the VO2 max, whatever. And that's very kind of structured data, right, and input. And it's very kind of transactional for, I would say, like claims reporting. And they focused really on the data that you needed just to fulfill that claims purpose, right? It's not at all elegant or in detail about what is going on deeply within the patient. However, there is a section of the clinical, of the EMR patient kind of interaction that is a free-form input, right? It's called the clinical notes section. And so a doctor, whether they type it in at the end of the day or, the nurse or whoever's dealing with them, they can do it with drag and dictation, whatever. They basically in there say, I saw, Derek today. He was in really great spirits. He's now vegan. It's totally helping his life. He's exercising 17 times a day. Where there's all these kind of interesting notes that are completely freeform. And so you could consider that unstructured. And so the problem is that if you're looking at, now there's this big push around provider-based medicine rather than kind of evidence-based medicine or population health or even analytics and AI. There's a lot of rich information about how, certain diagnoses or issues are presenting themselves in the daily life of the patient. So like phenotypically speaking. And that's a very important, I think, data point, rich kind of area that nobody's really accessing. And so the problem is that, a computer system or an AI system, in order to be able to understand the data, it has to at some point become structured or indexed and mapped to some kind of understanding or valuable point. And so where Cloudera comes in, it is an open source platform, right? So a lot of the tooling work is part of the open source community. And so a lot of really great tools on top of that integrate with the tooling in our stack. So one of these is Spark, which is a MPP tool that helps you massively, it's like massively parallel processing. So you can very quickly process a bunch of data in seconds rather than hours, days, or years that it would take. So essentially you can use that kind of compute power with Spark to be able to run through all of that unstructured data and then leverage tools for something that's called NLP or natural language processing, and connect every single kind of word in the sentence in that kind of dictated note, and then associate it to some clinical meaning. So like code, ICD-9 or ICD-10 is what's considered like the coding. There's for the diagnosis. There's CPT coding. There's something called SNOMET, which is also kind of an understanding of what is the clinical context of the words you're using. And so by being able to use the tools there, as well as kind of Impala, which is a SQL type, analytic or SQL type interface with Hadoop or data in Hadoop, providers, researchers, data scientists can now extract all of that data within the clinical note and use every piece of it for, data science or modeling or any kind of analytics to get a better understanding of, our patients. So you could think about it like now you can do almost like a Google type search on all of the patients in your organization. So like you can ask, rather than looking one by one, historically kind of pull up this patient, because I think this patient might have had this similar issue. You can just ask the system, pull up all patients that have had colonoscopy and are taking this medication and are between this and this age, and it should quickly, the query should come back in subsequent time. All the all of the clinical notes and patient notes that mention anything within those, within that context, which is super cool, super exciting.
But if you eliminate these barriers, big data can be a miraculous tool for healthcare facilities. It is less expensive and can have more potential than anything else. It can be used for predictive analytics, genomics, prescriptive analytics, bioinformatics, and millions upon millions of other ways. And as technologies become available, the more we can use big data in the healthcare field. Another way big data can be used is for personal performance optimization. Data can allow for people to track several aspects of their life. This allows people to track information like calories consumed, sleep patterns, daily steps, and many more. Technology like this can allow us to adjust our lifestyles to a healthier one. This grants us the ability to focus on healthcare instead of sick care. While many people haven't heard of this comparison before, it is becoming a real problem in today's healthcare field. There is a new mindset that has become prevalent in everyday life. A large amount of the population believe that they don't need to maintain their health using healthcare, but only seek treatment when they are actually sick. This mindset has created an environment of sickness and disease. This kind of mindset is called the sick care mindset, which believes you don't need to maintain your health, you only need to seek help when you have a lasting problem. Although, when you regularly schedule doctor's appointments and checkups, you are not only benefiting yourself, but the population too, because of diseases and viruses that are never caught until it's too late.
If you look at how we deal with medicine, or the delivery of care from the point of research to actually the point of interaction between the doctor and the patient, there's a huge gap in the innovation from R&D to where a patient and doctor engage. Medicine is a very much retrospective kind of, I hate to say it this way, Band-Aid approach, where patient's already sick, let's figure out how to keep them alive as long as possible. Where precision health and big data can actually help, I think, is twofold. So preventatively, there's a huge area where we can look at, if we totally understand what the patient is doing and we know what their health is like, and we have all these really rich validated models around figuring out predictive analytics, which then can become prescriptive. We can use the clinical and genomics data to really identify this patient has the highest likelihood of these events. Let's notify them preemptively so that they don't happen. And that can totally, obviously extend the length of a person's life, improve the quality of life, and also drastically decrease the cost of care, which is a big issue dealing with pharmaceutical and insurance plans and all this other stuff.
Maintaining fitness and health is not only important for yourself, but your neighbors as well. And big data technologies allow us to do exactly that, to improve your health. Healthcare wearables are one example that allow this kind of tracking of data for healthcare. This wearable healthcare technology is capable of tracking all types of medical information and can instantaneously send data to your healthcare provider. But there's a problem with this new type of technology: cybersecurity. With healthcare trackables, data privacy is a huge issue. Most hospitals and healthcare facilities don't use healthcare wearables for this reason. They are worried about their patients' data being hacked. Personal data has sparked controversy over the security and privacy of all types of information. Just like healthcare information, customers' general personal information are regulated by legislation similar to HIPAA, but this legislation covers a broader range of data and information privacy. This legislation is called the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, or GBLA. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act has 3 different rules or sections. These 3 sections include the Financial Privacy Rule, which regulates the confidentiality of financial information, the Safeguards Rule, which requires the practice of implementing security and protection of this information in financial institutions, and finally, the Pretexting Provisions, which prohibits the activity of pretexting or accessing private information under false purposes. Legislation like this ensures that the privacy of your information is required, so your identity and personal belongings will be safe at all times. So how is all this data stored? Well, as data technologies progress, more and more data and information can be stored. In 2018, information storage is not really a problem anymore. Information storage used to be limited, but today, storage pricing has dropped, and pretty much every piece of technology has a substantial amount of data. So there are really no problems with storage anymore. But what about large-scale businesses and operations? Well, while many companies have their own storage facilities, many companies store their data in websites and data centers using the cloud. Some of the largest data storage centers in the US include 350 East Cermak in Chicago, Illinois, Q2S Data Center in Atlanta, Georgia, the Microsoft Data Center in Chicago, Illinois, and many more. All these data centers store your data and data from other companies, programs, and operations. Because of big data, the healthcare field is being revolutionized in a practically infinite amount of ways, and this is just one example of how technology can affect the healthcare field.
The next technology we're going to be talking about is the patient portal. The patient portal is not only affecting doctors, but affecting patients as well, as it allows for any patient to connect online to their own information and view and change relevant data.
We've talked about how new technologies affect doctors, but what new technology is available to help consumers in the healthcare field? One huge example that involves healthcare data is the patient portal. Just like the electronic health record, this new technology allows the patient to access their own healthcare information. The patient portal is defined as a secure online website that gives patients 24-hour access to personal health information from anywhere with an internet connection, much like the electronic health record. Patient portals can be much more efficient than calling a doctor's or practitioner's office for your patient information. This means that for any healthcare provider with a patient portal, you would be able to obtain your data 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if there's an urgent need for information, or you simply want to know what your information is, it can be accessed, or it could be simply used as a better alternative to a phone call. Just like the electronic medical record, the patient portal has a data relationship with the electronic health record. The flow of information goes in a circle-like connection. First, the electronic medical record information is fed into the patient portal and is uploaded so the patient can view it. Then, if the patient needs to change or update the information, some aspects of the patient portal can be changed by the patient, or they may have a personal health record for themselves that they can update by themselves. These health records are otherwise known as personal health records. Then, the information that the patient changed is uploaded back to the patient portal and can be seen by doctors. This kind of relationship allows for the streamlining of healthcare data and allows for quick efficiency between healthcare employees and patients. The patient portal can allow patients to do an almost endless amount of tasks, but to simplify, it allows patients to view information such as their medical history, diagnoses, medications, treatment plans, and other information about themselves. The patient portal can also allow patients to securely message their doctor, request prescription refills, and communicate with their hospitals and healthcare facilities in other ways. The patient portal also allows patients to view educational materials and other information to better improve their health, and all of these tools can be accessed online with ease. Patient portals have many advantages, including the decrease of patients not showing up to their appointments, and the improvement of patient activity and engagement, and endless other advantages. Frequently, patients forget their appointments and engagements they have with their healthcare providers. Patient portals solve this problem by allowing healthcare facilities to send email reminders and notices about their appointments. As well as this, patient portals can actually allow for easy bookings of appointments online without having to call their doctor's office. There are several companies that produce different types of patient portals, and many times, different healthcare facilities implement these different patient portals.
A lot of what is provided in a patient portal is lab values, testing. So if you've had a chest x-ray or if you've had a CAT scan, those things are available to you. Your medications, what your physician or healthcare provider has prescribed to you, you're able to log onto your patient portal and see that. Depending on what patient portal you're in, and depending every health system or every practice has a little bit different what they put in the patient portal. So some people put everything. Other times patients have to request, I want my notes that Dr. Smith saw me on December 23rd. I want to see what he said that day. But I think a general overview is you can pull up your labs, you can pull up your test results, you can pull up your medications, and you can pull up your appointments, which is nice, and you can pull up which physicians you're seeing. Who is Dr. Smith? Who is Dr. Glatz? Who is, Dr. Ralph or whatever? What were they treating me for? Because you see so many different physicians, and you're not. Sometimes people aren't sure who they're seeing or what they're seeing them for. So that's what's helpful to patients too, because people that are in a situation where they're sick or need health care, it's really hard to retain all the information that a provider's telling you. You're trying to take it all in, but it's a lot of words and a lot of information that you don't understand. So to be able to visually see that in a patient portal sometimes just helps the patient to understand a little bit better what's going on with their health care.
Some examples of the most popular patient portals include Athena Communicator, MyChart, and many more. Several popular hospitals and healthcare providers like Ascension Health, Stewart Healthcare, Christus Health, and other providers use Athena Communicator, and different providers like Cook Children's Hospital, Memorial Care Health, the UCLA Health System, and others use MyChart. While there are a large amount of advantages for patient portals, there are some disadvantages too, and the most impactful of these disadvantages is the cybersecurity issue. Just like how there is security for banks, vaults, and physical health records, there is also security for online information and valuables that is put into place. This is also known as cybersecurity, or the techniques used to protect networks and data from damage and unauthorized access. Today's world is filled with new technologies, programs, and applications that all kinds of people are involved in, and the chances are they probably have some type of personal information within that program, and this is what hackers target. You probably heard of the word hack before, but hackers are any person who uses computers to gain access to unauthorized data. This means that all servers, clouds, and computers can be susceptible to data breaches, including health data. Many people have the mindset of thinking that they have nothing to hide, so they wonder why they should bother to protect their information. However, this is not the case because healthcare data might be the most valuable information to hackers. This is because while credit cards, bank accounts, and billing can be temporary, healthcare information is often lifelong. Information like your social security number, date of birth, and your personal appearance cannot be changed, and hackers can use this kind of data for their own gain. They often sell or use this data to make fake identities or steal your identity altogether. All types of information can be susceptible, and you should do what you can to keep your information safe.
With the rush to EHRs and the time frame with which providers and everyone else were required to do that, they really didn't have a lot of time to sit down and thoughtfully think about it. And I would also say, hospital organizations themselves are very slow moving, a lot of tenured people, so nobody's kind of rushing to be bleeding edge. And what that has essentially created is an environment under which they have not really thoughtfully planned out their cybersecurity strategy, right? And so, I have a lot of clients that, they just had to get into an EHR rather, and did not, it's a little bit shocking and scary how really they did not plan a strong cyber strategy around how they're moving to electronic health records, right? And so this is providing a Achilles heel, and hackers, predators are really, they are preying on provider systems because of this. And you can, if you go on the black market, a credit card, you can buy, credit card data for $1. A patient medical record goes for thousands of dollars because you have social security, you have date of birth, address, you have every single important, basically the data that is us. That is used in this country for anything that you want to actually do with your life, apply for a job, apply for a house, get a car, whatever. We are our credit, right? And so this is a huge gap that is very scary, actually, that healthcare organizations, I don't think, have thought through quite seriously enough as they move to an electronic kind of world.
For these reasons, running a patient portal has cybersecurity challenges. Not only does a data breach badly impact a healthcare provider, it would be in violation of HIPAA, and they would likely receive an extremely large fine, so secure patient portals are required to be secure and functioning. Even though a breach of cybersecurity is possible, if a patient portal is created the right way, it is a huge tool for patients and doctors to share information and communicate with each other. The patient portal is just one of many technologies that are progressing our world further to becoming a healthier and smarter place for everyone.
By now, you've seen and understood just a few technologies and how they are evolving the healthcare field. First, you learned about the new systems for storing patient information, and then you learned about the potential of big data in the healthcare field. And finally, you learned about how patients can access their own information online, and how patient portals are creating a healthier relationship between patients and doctors. Although there will be some barriers along the way, technology will continue to construct a better healthcare environment and allow for doctors and patients to work together in harmony. There is almost an infinite amount of ways how technology can change the healthcare field, but it's changing the world into a better and healthier place for everyone.